So this video is based on AQA, A-level business studies, and it's looking at marketing, and it's looking at price as an element of the marketing mix. So when we consider price, businesses won't just rush into a decision. They have to consider lots of different factors. It might be the price elasticity that's involved in the market, and there is a video based on that as well. But it could be to do with the strategy that's involved. And that's what this video is going to be based on. So it's going to be looking at all the different types of pricing strategies that are involved when businesses are setting that price. Now, in the AQA specification, the ones that you really need to know is price skimming and penetration pricing. They're going to be the ones that I start off with first, but then I'll consider a range as well. So penetration pricing. Now, penetration pricing is when a firm comes into a market with initially a low entry price. And what they tend to do is they set a low price to try and attract customers to the product, especially if it's a new product and it's a new company to that market. And once they believe that they've attracted enough customers, and actually the customers have stuck with them because of the quality of the product or service, then they may start to increase that price back to, I suppose, in line in comparison with their competitors. So as you can see from the pictures, you've got many companies that have used trial prices. I often see it a lot with magazines. So when a brand new first edition of a magazine comes out, usually it has a trial price as well. But we can see it's done with food items. We can see it's done with even some I suppose complementary goods such as new films for cameras and so on. But it is that trial price, trying to attract customers, try to build that customer base. And the opposite to penetration pricing is price skimming. And that means that when they're entering the market, they're actually setting a much higher price than their competitors. And the reason for that is because often the product that they're releasing it has a unique selling point of some kind. You see it a lot with technological products. So they believe that if they get into the market first with this brand new technology, they can skim all the profits from the market before competitors start to join the market or come into the market with similar products for themselves. If you think about Apple, when they very first introduced the iPad, it was a brand new product to the market. So therefore, they were the only one that was offering this unique product. So they were able to charge a much higher price because there was no competition. And they did it because they knew that competitors will enter the market eventually. So if they're able to offer a much higher price to start off with, then again, they can kind of milk the profits. And you can see it in terms of the types of customers that it might attract. It's probably like the early adopters. There's customers that need to have the most recent gadget. You can think about the Fitbit watch. The Fitbit watch, again, when it entered the market, because it was very unique to the market and there wasn't many watches with this capability, it was expensive. But now there's many competitors in this market that offer at a much cheaper price. So Fitbit have had to reduce their price slightly. So now I'm going to look at a range of different pricing strategies. So one of the pricing strategies is a loss leader, which is a common pricing strategy used in supermarkets. And it's when a company decides to actually sell their product at a loss. Now, the reason why they would do that is because they're trying to attract the customers into the shop, because they believe that when they're in the shop, they'll make other purchases, and that's where they can make their money from. So in supermarkets, they often do it on your basic goods, which probably there isn't that much of a profit margin on anyway, and there isn't much of a positive contribution. So what they might do is they might offer, for example, their own branded goods at a lower price than it actually costs in terms of manufacturing. But they know that when the customer's in the shop and they're going down the aisles, they're not just going to come in for one item and they're going to buy, for example, like a weekly shop. Now, getting them into that shop to do that weekly shop in a supermarket will give them that competitive advantage, and it'll help them to maximize their profits. The next pricing strategy is called competitor-based pricing. And as I've put here, if there is strong competition in the market, customers are faced with a wide range of choice of who to buy from. They may buy from the cheapest provider, but actually, in quite a lot of the time, if it's very competitive, many firms will actually match the price of their closest rival. And again, if you think about oligopoly markets, there's markets that have got dominant firms, dominating the market. they will not want to get in price wars with their rivals. What they would rather do is do it on par with their rivals and then consider non-price competition. So think about ways of competing with these companies, but on other elements perhaps of the marketing mix. Now, a good example of this is Coke and Pepsi, as we can see in the pictures. Coke and Pepsi would not really want to get into a price war. There's no reason. If for example, if Coke increased their price, then you may find that it's quite price elastic due to the amount of fizzy drinks in the market and the close substitute of Pepsi, that customers would choose and opt just to buy Pepsi, and that would massively hurt the demand for Coke. Or if Coke, again, reduced their prices, then that would mean that customers would want to go to Coke, so then Pepsi feel that they need to do the same. So then Pepsi would match that price, and both of them, again, would have similar prices, but it'd be lower than it was before. And it could continue and continue until it really hurts the contribution of the product. So therefore, they have kind of an agreement, and it's not an official agreement, because they're not allowed to in terms of colluding in terms of price, but it's an unofficial understanding that they will not compete on price and they'd rather compete on other factors. This is a pricing strategy that is often used by small companies, and it's called cost plus pricing, and it simply involves setting a price by adding a fixed amount or percentage to the cost of making or buying the product. So, for example, they'll recognise or they'll calculate the cost of producing the product, and then they'll just simply decide on how much added value that they'll offer. If they believe that there's an ability to add a lot of value, then they'll again add a percentage markup on that price. If they believe there isn't, then again it'll be limited. But it's much easier as a pricing strategy, and that's why many small companies will opt for this technique. This pricing strategy has been used more and more recently, and it's called psychological pricing, and that uses the customer's emotional response to encourage sales. So firms often increase sales without significantly reducing their price. Now, you'll often see this with this type of example, the £29.99 kind of strategy, where it seems cheaper than £30, but really it's only cheaper by 1p. It has this response from customers, this psychological response that customers believe that it is much cheaper than the alternative, when realistically it's actually not. Other companies do it, a psychological pricing, but they mix it with another pricing strategy called promotional pricing. So, for example, I know Sports Direct have been in trouble for this, where they've tried to make out that all of their products are in a sale and have got sale prices, but in fact they're not sale prices at all, and they're just normal prices. But by the merchandising and by the marketing they have in store, it has that psychological response from customers. So prestige pricing is another one, and that's also referred to as premium pricing. And it's when a firm sets a really high price to create a perception of high quality. You'll get a lot of the fashion designers that will have ridiculously high prices, much higher than it costs to make. I'm not saying the quality isn't good, but I'm saying the markup is ridiculously high. But they do this because they are all about image. They want to set an exclusive image for this again for this brand. So only certain customer groups can afford it, and again, it brings out this prestigious approach. Promotional pricing I've already mentioned, and it involves reducing the price of a product or service in the short term to attract more customers and increase the sales volume. Often carried out when companies are destocking, so when they're trying to get rid of stock. Excess stock or stock that is maybe going out of season, close to expiring, and so on. And you can get some examples here. Okay, so your special offers, you see them within store or in catalogues or online and so on. Price discrimination is slightly different, and that is when companies target customers differently. So they'll charge different prices for the exact same good to different customers. Now this is definitely an economics concept, so I'm not going to go too much into it in this video, and I'll do it in another video instead. But if you think about Amazon, is this an example? Because Amazon got in trouble for it. What they were doing is they were using cookies to collect data from their customers, and therefore they could understand or have a better understanding of I suppose, customer behaviour with certain products, so they could recognise what a customer's willing to spend on certain items, and then they were making sure that the price was in line with that. So you can imagine if you've bought a book before on Amazon and you paid a certain price for that book, they'll make it that every time you search for another book, it's in line with that price because they know that you're willing to spend that. But your willingness to buy it at that price might be completely different to another customer who might be willing to pay for it at a higher price or even a lower price. So both customers are getting charged differently for the exact same product. You could even see it in terms of peak and non-peak pricing. That would be an example of pricing discrimination. So if you think about students maybe getting student fees, they're getting the same, for example, train journey or bus journey as somebody else, but because of their age group and because of them being in education, they get it cheaper. Or sometimes if you buy in food out of peak time, might get a non-peak offer. And the final pricing strategy is one that is actually deemed to be illegal, and it's predatory pricing. So it's when a company intentionally offers or reduces their prices drastically to drive out competitors and create barriers to entry. So if a firm is proven that they have tried to do that and it's deemed to be uncompetitive, they can find themselves with hefty fines.